I took a class in the last days, what ended up being the last days of John Paul II's life. But anyway, so I'm reading John Paul II, and I'm reading his early stuff that he had written before anyone knew who he was. And I'm just being blown away, and it continues to carry in, and I start to see all the things that he did as Pope in a new light, and it was just amazing for me. And I was like, man, I wish I had read this stuff a lot earlier. I wish that would have helped me appreciate John Paul II even more if I had read this stuff earlier. And as the bells are still tolling at St. Meinrad, the bells celebrating the election of Pope Benedict XVI as our next Supreme Pontiff, I'm literally jogging down the stairs at St. Meinrad to the bookstore, and I grab the first 4 books by Cardinal Ratzinger that I could find on the shelf. I remember very clearly how blown away I was by the teaching, the eloquence, the ability to be very concise and clear, but yet compassionate. You know, I've realized as I've tried to write a little bit and very poorly, that you can tell a lot about a person when they write. You start to feel like you really connect with him. And I felt like I did. And Pope Benedict, as Cardinal Ratzinger, wrote upwards of like 80 books. 80. And what I found was I just kept buying his next book. And then I'd buy another book by Cardinal Ratzinger. And then I'd buy another one, and I would read them. And I would devour them. My family, my friends who are starting to have children now and are married and so on and so forth, they're never going to read a shelf of books. They're not. And so I started just taking my favorite Pope Benedict quotes, Cardinal Ratzinger quotes, and putting them into a Word document. And then I started writing my own stuff around it to kind of try and help explain it to people. And then I realized I had 289 pages of my own about Cardinal Ratzinger. And I need to publish it at some point. I never have. Outside of my parents, probably has had more to do with the type of priest that I am than anyone else. Because Cardinal Ratzinger, for me, was the one who showed me that the Church does cast out into the deep. He showed me that the Church speaks and has not only something to say, but something beautiful to say about the serious questions, the hard questions, the questions that I was asking. You know, John Paul II passed away, so then Pope Benedict was kind of like in charge during the interim period and had a Mass for the cardinals right before they go in to start voting. And Pope Benedict, Cardinal Ratzinger at the time, gives the homilies, his last homily as Cardinal Ratzinger. And he says in that homily to the cardinals, he says, the biggest evil or the biggest threat that we face today is the dictatorship of relativism. The idea that all faiths and all things basically are relative. And so your faith in general, religion in general, is just something that doesn't really matter. If it works for you, great. But if it doesn't have any claim on me unless it happens to work for me. At the heart of relativism is this idea that there is nothing that is really true. A few months ago, and I saw a book that was by the Dalai Lama called Beyond Religion. And there's some philosophies and people out there who say, you know what we need to do? It's religion that's the problem. We got to get rid of it. Benedict warns about that. And he describes what they say is that in their mind, religion means bringing myself into tune with the cosmic whole, the transcending of all divisions. And so for people like that, they see religion, what we did here tonight, the Mass, the faith, catechisms, priests, whatever it might be, they see those things as obstacles that get in the way. Pope Benedict clears the way and shows how we relate to other faiths. He says, what we need to do is we need to not stop being Catholic. You know, there's this theory out there among relativists that says, you know what, if we could just find things we all agree on and go with that, and get rid of all the other stuff. That's what a relativist really believes and would like to see happen. Pope Benedict is saying, no, you know what we need to do? In order to really relate with other faiths, we need to more fully embrace what we are, so that when we have a discussion with other people, they know where we're coming from. If we don't know our faith, and we're just sort of jello, you know, when people are talking to us, then we can't really witness to them, and we can't really have a discussion. If we were going to cast out into the deep, we got to know what we are. The other thing, another major theme for me, and I know for many other priests and Catholics, was what Pope Benedict, as Cardinal Ratzinger, had to say about the Mass. He said, the Mass will come off badly if it wants to enter the competition of show business. A pastor, this is my favorite line, this is what I always remember of Pope Benedict, even once he passes away from this life. A pastor is not an MC. I love that. That like sums it all up right there. You just need those few words. If you're a seminarian, that would be, okay, Father Hollowell, you get 2 minutes to talk to a seminarian before they're ordained. I would tell them, don't be an MC at Mass. He goes on and he says, the liturgy is not a variety show. It will also come off badly if it wants to be a sort of engaging circle of friends. I got some one-liners here from David Letterman, you know, and I'm going to do my best to make this endurable. This hour will be as painless as I can try to make it. And it really, the MC priest comes out of a mindset that I have to help be kind to people because they're going to leave otherwise. Pope Benedict said, in the spirit of the liturgy, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, whenever he wrote it, he said something that has influenced me as a priest in everything that I do. He said, ultimately, what people want to experience when they come to Mass is something completely different than what they experience the rest of the week. I'm all for David Letterman, or Johnny Carson, or Conan O'Brien, or whatever other forms of entertainment are out there. But I don't want it at Mass, because this needs to be different than everything else that I do. And he said, while we may say on a survey form, you know, Pope Benedict is saying, we may at first say, hey, let's get some ditties going in here. Let's get some songs going in here that are going to make this fun. Let's get some things going in here that'll make this entertaining. But he said at the end of the day, what we do is we feel that quick rush of pleasure, that quick rush of entertainment, but we leave feeling empty, unsatisfied. Because what we ultimately encounter then at a Mass like that is not what we are supposed to encounter. We are meant to encounter when we come here, and ultimately I think when we really think about it and we pray about it, we realize, I want this to be different. I don't sit in the shower or wherever else around the rectory chanting opening prayers. I don't chant anything. I'll take a Starbucks. You know, I don't use incense anywhere else but at Mass. You know, I don't ring bells when I go anywhere. I don't have like a server who follows me around the parish ringing bells when I walk in. Or if you told a bunch of us, plan a prayer service. I guarantee you, none of us, if we really chose to do the things that we would want to do, would choose the Mass. Okay, Father, hey, we all just brainstormed in the back, and what we're going to do is we're going to chant things, and I know you're not a really good singer, but we will chant away. We want you to chant. We want you to ring some bells. Bring some incense in that makes us all cough, please. We need that. No one would do that. And Pope Benedict says that's exactly the sign, and that's exactly what shows us that we didn't think this up. Because none of this stuff is what we would do on our own, that's exactly what shows us that this came from God, not from me. And I want to, at the end of the day, when I'm really honest about it, I want to experience something that came from God, not from me. Because everything else, especially today, is about me. It's about us. Everything. Marketing, do what feels right, do what makes you happy, do what's entertaining. People that walk in off the street, they see us clapping, dancing a jig. MC guy that's Johnny Carson, but in a weird robe. They see all that and they would be like, I can get that at home. And by the way, Conan O'Brien's a lot funnier than that guy that's up there trying to be funny. And everyone's laughing just to be nice. Oh, Father, you're so cute. That's so great. What a lame joke, you know? That's what draws people in, and that's what raises us to a deeper spirituality. And Pope Benedict was saying that way before it was cool, and oftentimes when he was being hated for it. Pope Benedict also says in the spirit of the liturgy, the Mass is actually done for God and not for ourselves. The more we do it for ourselves, the less it attracts people. The more we do it for ourselves, the less it attracts people. And we need to be in the business of attracting people. A third thing, Cardinal Ratzinger was at Vatican II and had a lot to do with helping us understand what the council was and what it was not. And he has some really good quotes. He says, I don't really like the terms before the council and after the council. He says, if you use language like that, it's tantamount to accepting a rupture in the history of the church. He was there and he was like, look, what we did there, it wasn't like there's before and after. It was a council, people. Just breathe. You know, a lot of people freaking out, still freaking out about Vatican II. And he's like, I was there. Do you really know have you read this stuff from Vatican II? Or are you using what you've heard about Vatican II from CNN or wherever? He said that as a council, it is an event that stirs up the whole church, and it takes a long time to finally figure out what it was that was being said. And he said, we have not really done that yet by a long shot. He said it just takes time. It takes time for councils to really sink in. For most people, sadly, if you ask them, what are the top 5 things that happened at Vatican II? All 5 things would be things that did not happen at Vatican II. There's all these rumors and things that people spread and say, yeah, that happened at Vatican II. Saying that typically means, hey, I want to do it my way, so I'm going to say and blame it on Vatican II. He's like, I'm there. I was there. And what we really need to do, he says, is a great thing. He said very clearly, and John Paul II was great at this too, because he was also there. He said, we need to read the texts of the council. Read them. And I think that's a great thing. And that's why our archdiocese has had this year, in this year of faith, has said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to read one of the council documents. Lumen Gentium. Latin. Light of the Nations. We're going to read that major document from Vatican II. You know why? Because it tells people what the church thinks about itself, which is exactly what we've been talking about. It's key that we understand that. And so our archdiocese has said, let's do what Pope Benedict was saying we should do a long time ago in John Paul II. Let's go back and let's look at the texts. If at Mass dancers came twirling in here with streamers, everyone would be like, oh, Vatican II. Vatican II said that. Yeah. No, it didn't. It didn't say that. It didn't even say that the priest should turn around and face the people at Mass. Vatican II said every Catholic should know every response at Mass in Latin. The fourth thing, and I'll leave with this, he said that it's key for Catholics to understand what freedom is. What freedom is. He said the modern idea of freedom is completely screwed up. The modern idea of freedom is that I'm only truly free when I can do whatever I want. The modern idea of freedom is that I say to myself, ideally, I could sin. That would be the best case scenario. If I could just do my sin. And so I'm not, so I'm a little less free, but God wants me that way, so I'm going to do it. I'm going to be a good Catholic. I'm going to give up my fun sins, but I'm not going to really be free because I can't do exactly what I want. And he said something that affected me greatly and has changed who I am. He said, law, many people hear law, church law, divine law, as oppressive, squashing. You can't do this, you can't do that, fast on Fridays, don't eat meat, go to confession once a year, gotta go to Mass. Thousands and thousands of laws, that's our specialty as Catholics. A lot of people hear those and they think, wow, that sounds like a lot of torture. Pope Benedict says that, and it's all over the Bible, but no one ever reads those parts, or no one ever seems to really focus on them, unfortunately. I had read the Bible, but I didn't notice it, maybe because I didn't want to. He said, law is not the obstacle to freedom. Rather, it shows us where our freedom lies. Law is not the obstacle to freedom. It shows us where our freedom lies. The absence of law is the absence of freedom. You can rail against the laws. You can say they're stupid, they're old, they're medieval, that people who like the law are just a bunch of Pharisees. Oh, he's a law lover. He's black and white. He just judges people and is angry all the time because he likes the law. No, you don't like the law, so you're hating me because I do. And I find great joy and great happiness and great freedom in it. And the only reason it had to be a law is because I never would have chosen it for myself. No human being, if God makes it a law, all he's doing is saying, hey, here's how you're going to be happy, and you don't even know it. I'm showing you, because I love you, how to find happiness and freedom and joy. I have to make it a law because you would never choose it on your own. Freedom. Pope Benedict. He's stepping aside. I'm happy for him. And the church will sail on. The church will continue on. But we need to make sure that we listen to him. Take some time over these next couple of days. Look up something that he said. Maybe pick up one of his books. Pick up an article or a speech of his as Pope, whatever it might be. He will show you how to cast out into deep waters and not stay on the surface anymore.